Hello, everyone. Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another awesome day. We have a guest presenter today with us, Sam Barnum. Are you there, Sam?
Yes, hello.
Sam is a fantastic developer. He's actually like, if you imagine like Batman, but there were two Batmen, and they work at 360Works. There's Batman Sam and Batman Jesse, and they're brothers, and they created 360Works years ago, and they have different jobs in the organization. And most of the time, we talk to Jesse, really nice guy. Well, his brother is just as nice. Very quiet guy, but kicks serious butt. And so we dragged him out of his cage today to present some awesome material. So once again, before we start, let me just do a little bit of boilerplate housekeeping here. Sam, just give me just a second to do this. What I'm going to do is tell everyone that you can check out the training schedule. If you go to fmtrain.tv, you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. And you can press the live training tab. You can see the upcoming schedule. Today, of course, we got Sam. He's working with a plugin. I think it's a plugin. We're going to check it out. He's going to explain to us. I don't totally get the whole thing of what he's doing, but I don't do a lot of the JavaScript kind of stuff, and he's in there playing with it, so he's going to walk us through that. Then tomorrow, Nick Hunter is going to be covering the self function. Dead Bird Friday's coming up. We do free samples and interesting stuff. I've seen some really cool stuff. If you have sent me a sample file that we have not covered before, and I haven't presented on it, can you send me an email to remind me? Because I've been a little bit overwhelmed, right? Heading to Christmas, and I may have forgotten your sample, and I don't want to leave you out. So if you sent me a sample I've not talked about, resend it. Find the email and do send again today would be really great, because I got a lot of good content for Friday. So Sam, what we do on Fridays is we just do kind of a cleanup of random samples we've seen around the internet, really cool things. And so it's like a Friday cleanup we do every couple weeks. And so that will be Friday at 1 o'clock this time. And then next week, we've got Nick Hunter doing all sorts of valueless global fields driving relationships. There's several days of that stuff. Now, as a reminder, this broadcast is being simulcast or triplecast at Discord, on YouTube, on Twitch. It's all live. However, you're probably watching this. It may be a recording, in which case you can't ask us live questions, but the people who are here at 1 o'clock Pacific time every day, Monday through Friday, can ask questions.
All
If
right.
you, if you want to support the channel, for those of you who are out there, once again, we're going to be telling you to go to 360Works to buy their products here. They're one of the companies I actively promote. But to support the live channel, if you want to purchase one of our training bundles, that puts money in the piggy bank so we can pay Nick, who is here all the time. Nick doesn't volunteer his time for free. He does have to collect a check from the company. So if you go to the fmtrain.tv, press the bundle button and get one of the bundles. Most of the people on Discord here have the bundle. We really appreciate the support. That's how you support the channel. You buy from the sponsor. So this is Sam's 360works.com. They make fantastic third-party products. They also do some development, which is I think where Sam mostly hangs out. But the Mirror Sync product is like the gold standard for synchronizing products. They have a whole bunch of products. I use their products every day. Every day I use 360. So. And the guys are really nice. They have a great team. I miss when we don't do DEF CON because normally get together and we have mayhem and stuff. So, Sam,
I'd miss that too.
I missed that. I totally missed it. So, Sam, and then there's DJ Danky Kang. Another 360 works. So, do you know who DJ Danky Kang is?
I do not.
He works for you. You should pretend he's there.
Oh.
And Alexi Folger's here. Oh, the heavy hitters are here. The heavy hitters are here. All right, so. All right, well, okay, so DJ Danky Kang, sorry, one of the owners of the company has no idea who you are, so I'm just going to pretend we didn't
I don't
see
recognize him with the helmet on. The helmet threw me off.
Oh, it's like, okay, yeah, so. All right. Okay, so welcome, everyone. So Lexi's there. Nice to welcome Lexi. So Lexi's a big 360 fan, too, I guess. So, Sam, what are you doing, and why do I care about it? I like the old question, like, why would you like this job? Why do you think you'd be a good fit for this company? There's always that question, right?
In terms of the library I'd like to talk about, or in general?
fmPromise. What is fmPromise? Is it? I mean, as opposed to FM Lying Weasel. If I have a product, I want FM Lying Weasel to be my product.
All right. Well, let's look that up. fmPromise is it makes web viewers better in FileMaker. So FileMaker 19 has a cool new features for web viewers, but it could be better. And we wanted to make it easier to actually write modules and use them in a web viewer and deploy those and actually write modern JavaScript in your web viewer content. So I wanted to use the latest and greatest features in JavaScript and a web viewer, and I wanted two-way communication between a web viewer and FileMaker, and not to jump through a lot of hoops. And I wanted to be able to write clean code for web components and web modules, and then have an easy way to bundle those into a database so that they can be deployed without a bunch of headaches. Because I was running into some just started annoying tedium with that. So that's where fmPromise came from. It does a few things. There's not like a one answer of like it's this, but
okay.
The name fmPromise is actually the fact that you can use promises in JavaScript to get data from FileMaker. And a promise is sort of an object in JavaScript that will have a value in the future, or it will fail in the future. You don't know, but and then you can do things asynchronously with that. Asynchronously meaning like, I want my JavaScript to call a FileMaker script. It's not going to happen instantly, but at some point it's going to happen. And then when it does happen, or when it fails, call this function that I'm giving you.
Okay, so we have Lee Snovers here. So like I said, it's the FileMaker community is coming out and to support you, which is really great, Sam.
Yeah,
we all miss getting together. I seriously miss it. So the promise is not like when I first saw it, I was like, okay, so Claris lied about something, so Sam is delivering on their promise or something, right? I thought it was some sort of like political thing. I didn't realize a promise is a code thing. So you want to show us your screen and kind of walk us through this a little bit?
All right.
And if you have questions, folks, definitely type it up here on the Twitch side with Alexi and Lee. Type it up there, and I will just kind of regurgitate it, shoot it back at Sam. Other people are saying 360Works rocks. Yes, we do appreciate them greatly.
Yeah, so fmPromise, which is not actually a plugin, it's an add-on, and it's free. So I'd encourage everyone to get it at 360works.com, fmPromise, and try it out. And so it's an add-on that you install in FileMaker, and then you add it to your solution. It adds a few things to your solution, and then you can drag an fmPromise web viewer onto your layout. So let me show you what it adds first of all, because that's always a question I have when I'm installing add-ons. It's like, what's this actually going to do to my solution? So at the moment, I've got a well, let's start with a simpler one. I've got all right, I've got this fmPromise example file. This was on a intro video that we did. I'll just show you what's here. So really, this solution was just this one table, fmPromise example. I called it fmPromise example. When I put the add-on in here, it created two new tables, fmPromise module, fmPromise web viewer. In addition, it created several scripts. Let's keep that. It created these 360Works fmPromise scripts, which you don't need to really worry about. And there were two custom functions that it created: fmPromise web viewer contents and fmPromise error result. We can talk about what all those do. The gist of it, though, is you can go to layout mode. Let's make just a brand new layout. And we'll bring our add-in over. All right, and so I don't want to go too quickly actually, but this 360Works add-on, I drag this over. It brings a web viewer over. It brings a couple buttons over.
Yep. We've done training on add-ons. That's fine. Yeah, most people here know what that is.
We go to browse mode. It says you've successfully added a fmPromise add-on web viewer to your layout, and it can display an HTML page which you create. And then you enter a HTML file name that you want to use. This is going to be how you create a fmPromise module. It's really just an HTML file. So let's call this fmtraining.html. I click continue. A couple things happened there. It wrote a file called FM training to my hard drive, and the path to this is just my my documents directory / fmPromise / fmPromise example, which is the name of the database, and then our file fmtraining.html, and then it refreshed our web viewer. And so this is your new module. It's been written to here. You can edit the document that's on the file system and then click refresh to see the changes. And when you're happy with the changes, so this is the refresh button. When you're happy with it, you click the package button, and it copies the file from your hard drive, puts it into a text field in the fmPromise modules table, which is here, which is one of those tables that was created by the add-on. And the idea behind that is, if you want to serve content from a web viewer, you need a place to store it. So the place, probably the best place to put that is in a text field. But when you want to edit a file, an HTML file, you really don't want to be typing text into a FileMaker text field, because that's terrible for code. So you want it on a file system, so you can use a nice web IDE like JetBrains IntelliJ or WebStorm. And so this lets you do kind of get the best of both worlds in that way, where we've got it on the file system. I'll open it up here. FM training. All right. So this is our file that's written in our documents directory somewhere. And we can make a change. We'll save it. We'll go back to FileMaker, refresh, and we see our change. This is sort of the development mode, and you'll see this toggle dev mode is on, meaning web viewer content is served from the hard drive. If dev mode is off, it's going to serve it from that modules directory, that modules table, fmPromise modules. The other table that's here is fmPromise web viewer, and basically the module contains the contents of the file. FM training has a record here, and then the web viewer has every instance of that module. So we've got FM training is on our layout called empty, and there's a blank configuration because there is no configuration for this. And basically, every time you drag a fmPromise onto a layout and you tell it what file name to show, it's going to create a record in this web viewer table. And then it knows what file to display on that web viewer. And if you go to the module FM training, you can go to instances. You can see it was added to this empty layout at 3:15 by admin. And then what happens when you package it? So if we've made all our changes, I'm going to make a few more changes. So we'll just clear that out, and we'll say this is the finished module. We'll refresh it. Looks good. We'll package it. Oh, you know, it's complaining about the name, but anything that starts with fmPromise, it thinks is a reserved word.
It's a reserved thing. Okay, so we don't use that.
Yeah. So if we go to fmPromise module, I'm going to click OK. All right. So we've packaged that up, and now we've got our HTML file is stored in the modules table in a text field. The other interesting thing that it did is it inlined all of the external dependencies into a single file. So there's a CSS file that's linked to, let me show you, over at the top. actually, let's look at our template one by one. So we've got a doc type, which says it's HTML. We've got we defined the character set, UTF-8. This is handy in case you pass weird characters in from FileMaker to your web viewer and you don't want them to get mangled. And then we've got a fmreset.css file. And what that does is it has just a couple, it's small, but it has a couple little utility things to make it look a little more like a FileMaker content instead of like the weird web viewer content. So we set a default font color, and we get rid of some of the padding on the HTML. And finally, we include a link to fmPromise.js in our template. It's really not necessary. Like for this static content, we're not really using it, but we do include this fmPromise.js, and that looks like this. And if you're using fmPromise, the best way to like use it and get the documentation is probably just look through this file. It's pretty well documented. And then we've got our static content, which is here, and then we've got a script, which at the moment is just sample functionality. And what this script does is it gets the documents path from FileMaker using a calculation. I'll probably want to go into that in more detail later in just a minute. But then when we package it, fmPromise it gets this HTML file, it actually parses it, it looks for any external CSS or JavaScript, and it inlines it so you've got it all in a single text field. And what that does is it lets you deploy your solution even offline with no network access. If someone has FileMaker Go or something, they can use this and easily show our page and all of its dependencies in a web viewer just by pulling it from this field.
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my head around this, Sam, a little bit. So you're gonna have to express or forgive the stupid questions that are gonna go on here. I'm trying to understand. So I mean, so for a broader question I have is I'm not making the connect between the initial conversation of this being kind of this asynchronous, get this thing done later, as opposed to your demo here, which is your package. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I don't get it yet. But I'm not a coder at your level. And I'm kind of like a baby senior engineer from all practical purposes because I manage anymore and I don't code as much. So I'm trying to. So if those links were external links, they're internal links. But if you had an external link on a server, would it have grabbed those files and then loaded them into the package?
Yeah, let's try it. I'm gonna switch files actually to a different database I've got called Monsters. I think the version of fmPromise is a little old on that one. This is 1.1, which is what's on our site. So let's call this FM Training. Put character. All right. And you're right, Richard. There are two main parts of fmPromise. One is like making the whole deployment thing easier, which is what I just showed. And I think that's the thing that a lot of users are going to understand right off the bat. You don't need to know JavaScript. You just need to say like, hey, I want some HTML content.
So it's an offline. It's like I hate to say this, but like an offline suckage, like a vacuum cleaner. So we sucked it off the online. You inlined it into the FileMaker solution, so then you can be offline and still have this content. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. So we've got our monsters. This does not have fmPromise installed. You'll see that our this is like a D&D database I just created for demoing this. It's pretty bare bones and basic, but we've got characters and inventory and campaigns and so on. And very little in the way of scripts. My first script, my second script, so not much here. I'm gonna delete this. All right, we have no scripts now. And I'm gonna add fmPromise to this. And for anyone who hasn't used an add-on, the trick really is just you download it and then you put it in your add-on modules, fmPromise. And then once you do that, you restart FileMaker. Then any solution you want to use it in, you come to the add-ons. You say, I want to add this 360Works fmPromise. They're on 1.1. And it tells you actually now the tables and the layouts it's going to add, and then the scripts. It doesn't actually list the custom functions here, but there are 2 of those. But let's do that. We add this, bring this out, and then we go to browse mode, the same thing we saw before.
Okay.
FM training. Training sample. All right, so now we got training sample here. We're in dev mode. And Richard, you asked about like external sources.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're rolling them up and they're already internal, that's of limited utility. But if you can suck down a page and it's supporting underlying CSS and stuff, or JavaScript library or whatever, externally, and then I guess, yeah, there you go. That's a cost. People always talk about Bootstrap, right? So.
Yeah. So I noticed. I'm going to go off my own little rant here, but I noticed that a lot of the built-in add-ons include Bootstrap, which is, it's cool. I use it also, but I don't include it unless like I need it. But it is big. Like here, we'll scroll down, scroll. This is an old version of Bootstrap, but anyway, it's big. So let's go to our training sample. Let's get rid of just about everything. We don't even really need this JavaScript. I'm gonna comment out all the script, JavaScript. We'll just delete it. And let's start with the most simple kind of thing we can, which is just like,
You got a header, you got a body. That's basic HTML.
Yeah.
Forget JavaScript. Is basic.
Yeah. So super simple. We go refresh it.
Got it.
It doesn't have our CSS is gone, so it looks very webby. And then we package it, and here's what we get.
Okay. I could do this. That part.
Yeah.
This part I could do. That's not saying much. It's just something I'm instantly comfortable with because we've back to HTML.
But even this, what's cool about it is that it does it for you. You don't have to copy the contents of your file and put it in a table somewhere and configure your web viewer to point to one thing in when it's in dev mode and another thing when it's not in dev mode. Which it really makes it easy to add your own custom HTML stuff. So let's close this and let's make it more. Let's include Bootstrap. All right, now we've got Bootstrap. If we refresh it, it looks the same because we don't have a content div, I think. Our hero. Well, I might be misremembering how to use Bootstrap. We want some red text in there. All right, now we can do a table. So it does have nice looking tables.
Okay.
We'll do a
Okay.
I don't think we're getting the I don't think we're getting our CSS working here. All right. Yeah, it's not loading our Bootstrap CSS.
Okay, because the MIME type is not executable.
It's strict MIME checking. All right, so let's do. Oh, we need all this stuff with the integrity.
Oh,
so that's our browsers keeping us from doing something dumb.
Integrity. That's the checksum they use to verify no one's hacked the source, correct?
Yeah. Because you can CSS, I guess now you can compromise someone's system with CSS, which is progress for sure. All right, and now let's see. Hey, there's our nice looking table.
Okay, so now we got that going.
And this stuff is all.
Yeah, that could be whatever.
Sample data.
Yeah.
All right, and then if we package this, we've got Bootstrap. Now, one thing you'll notice is that this is minified. So when you do package something, one nice thing it does for you is it's minified already. But if you link to something that's not minified, it'll look for a minified version of it, and it'll inline that. So we just took our very simple file to.
I'm learning all sorts of vocabulary today. I know what you're talking about when you say minified. I'd not heard that term, but that's removing all the white space and all the things that make it human readable go poof out the window for those of you following the conversation. And then the integrity tag is a good one. That's basically from an old school Fortran programmer myself. That's your checksum to make sure it's not being blown up.
Yeah, so minifying CSS and JavaScript saves a ton of time. If we can take out the .min here, and we'll see the non-minified.
Okay, so so all of you want to know, there you go. There's your human readable versus not.
Yeah, so using JavaScript, it's often nice to do your development in a non-minified setting, because then you can, maybe there's documentation on the JavaScript and that kind of thing. But when you package it, you want it as small as possible, and nobody's going to ever look at it again. So it makes sense to try to use the minified version if possible. And yeah, so this is totally static. There is no 360Works JavaScript in our thing. It's just Bootstrap with the fancy table.
Okay.
There's the hero thing, hero component, Jumbotron. That's what it is. Now we can have a Jumbotron because we've got Bootstrap loaded. Cool. So that's the hero unit.
Okay.
And then there's a button. So all these are Bootstrap styles.
Okay.
If you don't want something loaded, so maybe we know we're never gonna deploy this offline. If anyone ever looks at this, they're gonna have network access. So what we can do is we can say data package equals ignore. And this is a function of fmPromise. When fmPromise parses this and it sees that, it's going to ignore it. It's just going to leave it as, wait, does it leave? I think it's ignore.
Oh, it says omit. I saw omit up there at the top a second ago.
Yeah, omit will just remove it entirely.
Oh, entirely. Okay.
This is in the README. but it looks like it still is in there at the moment.
Well, that's fine. I'm just so in terms of the asynchronous part of this, is there a way of, is that what you were trying to demo, or is that where we're going with this?
All right, now let's go there now. I'm actually going to delete this web viewer and bring a new one in, and let's play around with that, because I think that's really the cool part of fmPromise. Async stuff.html. All right, I'm going to open this up in IntelliJ, and we've got our template here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a div called with an ID of output. And let's refresh that. All right, so output goes here. I think that the best way to try developing stuff in fmPromise is actually not by editing a file and reloading, but by using the JavaScript console. So what you need to do, that I've done on here already, is run this code. I don't know if anyone can see that. It's kind of gray on black.
But, the beeswax.net one, or the Safari note?
Yeah, beeswax, how to enable WebKit and JavaScript debugging in FileMaker Web Viewer.
Yeah, we can read that.
And basically, you do this from your terminal. Defaults write com FileMaker client WebKit debug developer extras enabled -bool yes. And what that does for you is now I can go here and I can do inspect element. And it opens the Safari dev tools.
I had not seen that. That's a cool one.
Yeah, this is, I would call it indispensable for doing this kind of thing.
Hey, I have a question. I want to know if Lee, Snover, or Lexi knew that one. That's a good trick. Maybe they knew that. I did not know that you could do that. That's great.
Yeah, I didn't. I think Joshua at 360 tipped me off to that, which is great. I think it was Josh. So thanks for that.
Well, it could be DJ Denky K. That's your random employee. You don't know who that person is.
I'm gonna credit DJ Denky King. Yeah. So now we've got a console. So what's interesting is we can try out JavaScript. We can do output. So I don't know if this is really going to get into JavaScript a lot. So
well, your brother's here. Your brother's here. He said, "I'm here to learn about JavaScript." So that's
all right.
So
I don't think there's any way to do this without confusing a lot of people. If you know it, you'll understand some of this. If not, like just kind of try to get the gist of it. But this console lets you run JavaScript, and you can actually save stuff. So document get element body output is going to get a reference to this div, and we can save it, and then we can change it. Inner text equals Sam was here. And now we just change the content of our page by doing that.
Okay, hang on 1 second here. So this is the output here. This is the code, and what are these? You're changing parameters here down here. What are we?
What I'm doing is I'm typing JavaScript in the console
live JavaScript.
Live JavaScript that's running in this web viewer that's over back in FileMaker.
Right, but the original base page that is this right here, correct?
Oh yeah, that didn't change.
Okay. Good.
It doesn't write it to the file system.
Right. No, it's just locally. Yeah.
So yeah, but it does change in the inspector. All right, and because we've got fmPromise loaded using this script, we've got a window level fmPromise object. So in JavaScript, we can call fmPromise If we hit dot, we can see all the methods that are there. The ones with the underscore tend to be private, but we've got evaluate is a nice one. So evaluate is a function. We could say evaluate true. Actually, let's do evaluate 1 + 1. And so here we're getting into promise land, Richard, just what you wanted. We called this function evaluate, and it returned a promise. And status of that promise when it got returned was pending. Again, a promise is something that will have a value in the future, but it doesn't yet because it happens asynchronously.
Okay, so stop. So is 1 + 1 then like a variable name? Then is that what we're talking about, or is that the code? I mean, I'm trying to understand.
1 + 1 is a FileMaker calculation.
Okay.
So fmPromise evaluate is a function that accepts a calc string, and it will pass it over to FileMaker, evaluate it in FileMaker, and then resolve the promise in JavaScript with the result of evaluating that calculation.
Okay.
So it's just like the dev tools. If we go to FileMaker dev tools and type 1 + 1.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. It was reminding me of the data viewer is what this was reminding me of, right? So I didn't say that, but I was like, okay. So this kind of down here is kind of like our data viewer down here anyway, a little bit.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So but you gave it a name, right? fmPromise is your thing, and then evaluate. What was the name of this? The actual name? Did we give it a name? Like, because you could send more than one promise out. You could call promise Jesse, promise Sally, promise Fred, and then evaluate all three of them, or how would that?
Yeah, good question. I did not give it a name.
Okay, that's why. Okay, stop. You're screwing me up. Everything you got to name things, man. You got to name
it again and give it a name.
Yeah, so I'm looking for the name. There we go.
Equals this.
Okay, got it. All right.
It's still returned a promise. You see this ID changes each time. So now we've got Richard, and we got a hold on this thing. Hey, now look, it's resolved. When we got it before, it was pending. Now it's resolved. And I don't know, its result is 2.
Okay.
Cool. Before fmPromise, you couldn't really do this. I should maybe back up a little and talk about the window level FileMaker object. So when FileMaker was running in a web viewer, it installs a window level FileMaker JavaScript object. What you can do with this, and the only thing you can really do with this, is call FileMaker.perform script.
Right. That's that new 19 function that we've been playing with, right?
There is no yo script. So if we create one, and we say, let's just exit. You typed, and then we'll exit with whatever parameter was passed in. So it's like an echo.
Okay. Okay, clever. Yeah, that'll work.
So if we try this now, it does run. Our script runs.
But we didn't receive the data back. Yeah.
We don't get anything back.
Yeah.
So JavaScript can call the FileMaker script, but it can't get the data back. With fmPromise, we can call perform script, and we get a promise back. And that status is pending. If we look at it again, it's resolved, and the result is you typed null. So what just happened is we called the script, we got the exit result of the script. So in JavaScript.
So even though the calculation could be instantaneous, it's still going to be like it's pending because you just shot it there, regardless of how fast it might be on the file. Like, because 1 + 1 is about as dumb as it gets, right? And so that should be instantaneous. So that says that there's always a call, and then you can go back and see the status if it's resolved. 1 + 1 would have been done, what, a millisecond later or something, right? But it was still, there was that time, there is a difference there over that time period. Okay. So you could do a whole bunch of these. So FileMaker's doing these, and then where is it stacking them? Obviously, it's getting the results, it's stacking them somewhere. Where's the stackage? It's like a mailbox. I have to go get my mail. So how do I get my mail?
Yeah, great. You got it. The stacking, it doesn't actually ever get out of the script. Let me walk through what happens. We call fmPromise perform script yo, and then we can pass an optional parameter. Oops. Yo, Richard. So the second parameter is the script parameter that we want to call to the script. And then result says we typed Richard. So what happens when we call fmPromise perform script is fmPromise does not call that script directly. It calls this script, fmPromise, and it passes the parameter containing the name of the script it wants to call. This fmPromise script was created by our add-on.
Got it. So the intermediary, I don't want to say, it's almost like a mailbox storage kind of variable storage kind of thingy, is your scripts that right there that run this intermediate in between. Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
And then we're using perform script by name. Our intermediary script calls the script that you actually want to call. And then it gets the result of that script, and then it resolves the promise that we passed in.
I have a question. So between FileMaker 19.0, they initiated this release of this thing, and then in 19.1 dot whatever it was, 19.138531 whatever, they added a new version of it with like the 5 options, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Do those options do the same thing as this? I thought they kind of improved the communication back and forth. Can you?
Those options are really about controlling the flow of the script, but it still doesn't give you a result back. I think it lets you resume a script that's already running, or something like that.
Well, it's certainly not as robust as this. I'm just trying to understand the because if I went to Claris and I said, hey, Claris gets you on the phone. Not that they're ever going to call you or care, but they get you on the phone and they say, well, why would we care about fmPromise as opposed to our new 5 option thingy that we did, right? So it's it's not in curl. It's in the it's a Java. The Java. When you guys have that off the top of your head?
Oh yeah.
It's the I think there was one.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Right there. How to control.
Continue, halt, exit, resume, pause, interrupt.
Yeah, but that's a.
So
but that's
if there's a script already running, you can specify what to do with it.
But it doesn't really help you with data back in that case.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So this really gives you the option of doing that.
Okay. So
getting the two-way communication.
Lee Snover. Now, keep in mind that when I get comments on YouTube or Twitch, there's about a 90-second delay. Lee Snover says, callback function, ? Event handler, ?
Yeah. So a promise, right now, we're just messing around in the console. So we're not using callbacks. We're just triggering the promise, and then a second later, we're looking at the result. But really, what you would want to do is you're Richard II. You'd want to pass a then callback. And then you would do something when this callback gets triggered by the promise.
Okay, so the promise on the other side would force a code execution back in JavaScript, kind of like the results are done, and then here I'm going to shove it down your throat. Got it. That's the callback, yeah. Okay.
The promise was resolved. And then we'll just call this X. We'll call this the callback value. The promise was resolved, and then we'll log that. So when I run this, it's going to do the promise, and then it's going to, the promise hopefully will resolve and call our callback. Oops. All right. I'm missing parentheses there.
Yeah, you got to balance your code, baby.
All right. So it did our promise. It performed the script yo with a parameter Richard 2.
And then it was pending.
it resolved it with 20 characters, and then our callback got triggered, and it said the promise was resolved. You typed Richard too.
Yeah. So initially, right here, it did show, or right here, it was showing it was pending, which makes sense. We sent it, but nothing there yet, right? But then but then it finishes, which could be a variable length calculation. Like, what if it's a 20-second calculation or a summary, some sort of horrible summary, something, right? And then it generates that, and then it shoots it back to you. Okay, so Promise comes with scripts that link to your JavaScript calls. Yeah, well, yeah, that's the whole point, Moki, is to call your code back and have it trip. Either you do it and it's waiting for you to go get it when you want it to get it, or your JavaScript. I got a question. So when you got JavaScript spinning around in a web viewer, does the JavaScript? This is a kind of a dumb, like, junior question, right? But does the JavaScript, is it spinning continuously, like continuously executing, or does it execute and then stop?
What I want to show you actually is error handling.
Okay. Sorry, that's fine. We're on two different tracks here because you could
just said you can't say I'm gonna.
Okay, you got to keep it clean. Yeah.
It rejects it.
Yeah. I can't say that. Well,
so we added error checking, and so it doesn't change when you do Richard.
Hang on. There we go. All right. Okay. I see. I see. Okay, go ahead. And then I guess change the value to Okay.
It rejected it. So what's interesting here is our promise never resolved, because fmPromise has a if you want a script to throw an exception, you start with the word error, and that's how you do error reporting, because FileMaker doesn't really have exceptions.
Okay.
So if your script starts with error, it's gonna fmPromise, our proxy script, is going to get that result. It's going to say, hey, this starts with the word error. It doesn't actually parse anything. And then it says, like, and then it tries to figure out, like, is there an error code, or is the error payload a JSON object, or is it just a message? And so back in JavaScript land, in addition to a then callback, we can have a catch callback. And we can say console warn promise failed with failure.
So what is a catch now? A catch is another inside baseball term?
Try catch is an exception handling term where it doesn't exist really in FileMaker, but the idea, it's in Java and JavaScript and a lot of other languages, where you do a try block and you run through everything in the try block, and if something fails, it exits that try block. It doesn't try anything else. You don't need to explicitly check for whether something failed every single time, every single step. Any error will kick it out. And then you have, at the end of the try block, traditionally you have a catch statement.
Kind of a generic catch-all or whatever, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, or you can specify which kinds of things you want to catch. That's the idea here.
All right, so Lee Schnover says, kind of like using FileMaker like an API within JavaScript, question mark. That's from a couple minutes ago. Yeah, I mean, I guess Lee says, I should say REST API, at least based upon JS courses I'm walking through. So Lee is like a lot of us here, we're kind of learning this stuff. And then there's people like Todd, Geis, and you, and a bunch of people that are doing this stuff really hardcore. And we appreciate you dragging us through this, to be honest with you.
So there's no network activity going on, but fmPromise is a lot like a REST client. It just happens to use the script calls to communicate with FileMaker instead of HTTP networking. And the error reporting is really also really cool. I think, as far as the two-way communication, because things don't always work. Maybe somebody's editing a record and you can't update it. Maybe you typed a layout wrong, or maybe execute SQL failed or something. uh, and so
This
yeah,
is
all
this
that.
is very cool. This is very cool. Do we? I mean, I don't have a hard stop, Sam. I mean, I can let this run for another 10, 15 minutes if people care about
Okay,
that. Um, so that's because since it's my TV
let
show, then
me
it goes as long as we want
let,
it to go. Yeah, go ahead.
let's go, keep going a bit. I want to do something that's not just in console. Um, I want to show you some actual like editing the HTML code. So let's go back to our HTML template and
By the way, for the record, you've done 2 demos today, and I don't see the link between the two. One's this like execute it and come back later, and the other thing is this HTML packager thing, right? So
right.
from a layman's perspective, I'm not getting the cohesiveness here.
Yeah, yeah. So let's do something in our code. Let's do something maybe more useful. We'll do fmPromise execute data API records. So fmPromise can call scripts, and it also has a bunch of built-in functionality to do things like execute SQL, execute the data API, evaluate things. What else? Setting fields by name, showing a dialog. That's most of it. So if we want to execute the FileMaker data API, we can get everything from the character layout. Now, trivia quiz, what's this going to return? It's going to return a promise, right? So if we want to do something with this result, we'd want to keep a reference to the promise and then use a then callback to data to do something with that. And let's put it in our output. We get the document. I'm going to get a reference to this div here, and I'm just going to put the data in there. This is not going to be very interesting because data is a JSON object, so I think it's just going to say object. Close our script viewer. All right, yeah, it's an array of objects. What we want to do instead is stringify our data. And now what we have is we've got our FileMaker data API records in JSON format. So this it's a lot of things to cover here. Maybe the first thing to cover is that we're running this as soon as the page loads. We call fmPromise execute FileMaker data API records. In the past, I think a lot of HTML that wants to display FileMaker data, you would do something in FileMaker to build a payload, and then we'd go to your web viewer and you would replace the contents with that.
Yes.
One cool thing fmPromise does is, because everything is asynchronous and promise-based, you can call execute FileMaker data API as soon as it loads, and then it's going to wait until FileMaker has finished initializing the FileMaker object in JavaScript,
Okay,
and then it's going to call it.
Can I walk through this? So when you drop this into WebViewer, the code's going to execute this way, linear in a linear fashion. It's going to call this, and then it's going to come to the end and basically stop. And then your fmPromise intercepts the request. Then it goes to FileMaker, call script by name or whatever it's doing. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It's going to grab it. It's going to bring it back. You have the callback that initiates, and it's going to activate the code right here. It's going to reactivate this code, which had stopped previously because it had run all the way through. Correct? Yes.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
All right. Listen, for everyone who's here, you're not going to get all this. You're going to get 4 or 5 salient nuggets, and then walk away and let it and then probably watch this watch this again. Moki has a question. I'm going to ask the question. Yeah, I'm trying. Listen, that's what people go love my drawing. They're saying they love my drawing because I'm an animator. I would never make a a presentation like this without graphics flying around the screen to articulate this because I'm visual, right? So Mookie has a question on Discord. He says, question, does fmPromise have a template or scripts / functions to fill out forms, question mark? For example, autofill username and password for a website, question mark.
No, there's not a lot of templates that come with fmPromise. There are a few examples. If you want something, like, I would encourage you to contact us. You know, at 360Works, we've got people who are experts in this and who are using the tool, and you know, we can get something and get that to you, and then maybe use that as a starting point, and you know, work on it in the future. I'm hoping that you know, this is free, it's open source. I'm hoping at least do a little bit of consulting work for us, but also, you know, it's just something that's useful that I think is gonna,
yeah, I want to be very clear.
Out.
Yeah, let me help out with this a little bit. So let me do the shameless plug. So for those of you who, I mean, there's nothing like the smell of free software in the morning, right? But the reality is, this is 360Works, and they are in business like everyone else is in business, and they need to make sure that they have project work. So they do custom development, right? I can tell you by this end, this very high-end custom development. I've actually had customers hire them to do modifications or extra add-ons to plugins, or some plugin didn't do something, but the customer's willing to write a check for $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 to get the feature added, so it was part of the product going forward. There's all sorts of things you can do with 360Works, right? So Jesse's here. Apparently, there's a number of Barnums that are floating around, and I can't say enough good things about the company. The companies that I really truly respect, I really truly love, not because they're perfect. I can tell you, I remember Sam and Jesse both working in my hotel room at like 3 and 4 in the morning trying to finish like an early version of Super Container, because I was presenting on it the next day. It literally was over 1,000 people. And they were trying to get some feature to work correct, and they kept fixing, compiling, and because they cared so much about it. So they're not perfect people, but they really give back to the community. They make some free things that are great. But if you want to honor what they're doing, or in any way, if you have a project, you can use their stuff, buy their products, hire Sam to do some work.
So if you do JavaScript data tables, you end up with a lot of jQuery stuff, and then Tabulator. I went to Tabulator, which is just a fancy JavaScript data table. And they've got code on there that you can put in your own file. So basically, I got their CSS, I got their JavaScript. We're still loading our fmPromise, and I wanted to build a data table of whatever we want in FileMaker. So basically, I loaded this stuff. I have an input where you choose a layout that you want to fetch data from, and then we've got an empty my table div. And this is all of the code here. We've got an init function that runs as soon as the page loads, and this basically instantiates our data table with no data in it yet. This is just to build the layout select. Let me show you here. Oops. These are all the layouts in our solution. So we're getting that list of layouts via this evaluate function. We're calling this from within JavaScript. We're saying layout names, and then we get file name. Then we just split that on the carriage return, and we build an option for each one of those to put in our form back up here. So hardly any of this is actually the data table. And then when the form submits, it calls this fetch function. So we get the value, which is the layout they selected from the list. Then we execute our FileMaker data API with that layout. We limit it to 250 records. And then we call set data on our tabulator object. You end up with something like this. It's very quick, and so inventory, and then you end up with this fancy data table, which granted FileMaker already does pretty well. Building table views of things with sorting and resizable columns and that kind of stuff. But it shows you like it's very doable to build this kind of stuff without too much code. Oh, and one other thing that I really want to show is the chart. You know, one of our tables here is the monsters, D&D monsters, like the giant tick and the hellhound and the ochre jelly. And I was wondering, like, how tasty are these things versus how dangerous they are? So you've got two fields, one for danger, one for tastiness. And so we'll drag a web viewer out. I've already written the chart for this. It's called the monster chart. If I type in monster-chart.html, it's not gonna overwrite that file I have already. It's gonna bring it into our solution. And I know everyone loves XKCD, so there's a library that'll let you chart things using XKCD style libraries.
Is that this kind of goofy crayon style? Is that what you said? What kind of style is that? I've never heard of that. What is that?
XKCD is a web comic that's great, and there's I guess a D3 library that will render stuff in that style.
Okay.
So here we've got like the hellhound rates a 74 on the peril and a 54 on the flavor. We've got black pudding, which is very tasty and pretty safe. We've got a white. So,
wow.
Yeah, and the code for this is also like very small. Again, we're just loading a XKCD chart library. And then our code is calling the FileMaker Data API on the monsters. And we are then just configuring our chart with something like the labels and the data set of like the danger versus the tastiness. These are our FileMaker field names that come over. All right.
Well,
yeah.
my head, I'm broke. You broke me. I've absorbed the maximum amount of new information in one day legally by law. We'd have to have a permit to learn any additional new things today. So, so where do they find all the free stuff, right?
You go to 360Works, fmPromise.
Yeah, and I want to encourage everyone that, the free stuff is great, but definitely, if you run into situations where you need some customization, you want to spend some money, don't talk to Sam. Sam doesn't do money. Talk to Jesse. Jesse will handle the money, take your credit card, whatever. But they got a ton of products here. I mean, let's see, the ones I use. I use that. Sometimes I've used that less now. Mirror Sync, I use this. And then I got to play with this, but it hurts my head. I use this every day like crap. No, don't use a chart plugin. Mail plugin, I have used it if you want to do like bulk stuff. Yeah, and then Zulu. Oh, and I use Zulu every day. So yeah, RCC approved, right, baby? So Lee Snover says, cool, 2 months ago this would all been Greek to me. Now it's like 50% Greek. So 50%. Right. Yeah, so.
Yeah, you can really write nice, idiomatic, clean JavaScript in your web viewers. And this, you can use the async await stuff, which is sort of syntactic sugar around promises. And, this doesn't support Windows. I want to say that because it uses IE. So once you just kind of accept that you're not going to support IE, you can use all of the cool modern JavaScript stuff you want.
So let's dive into that real quick. So Claris is aware that it's not really a Claris issue, kind of a Claris issue, but Microsoft has been trying to use their new web library, right? Get rid of IE and switch it. And Claris keeps saying they're waiting for Microsoft to do that. Do you have anyone have any sort of update on when we're going to see the library change? Because that will change the suck level on Windows. It'll go down quite a bit. It'll be much better.
I'm hoping it's soon. I'm not going to put the work in to try to get it to work with IE. if they get it to a modern JavaScript library, it's just going to work.
And I want to tell everyone that you guys want to have Sam come back, right? But you have to support Sam and 360Works. You gotta make sure that if you have customer, they need syncing, you direct the customers to buy the 360 products. Because and tell them that Richard sent you, and that way next time I go to Sam and say, hey, you want to show your thing, and Sam goes, well, last time I didn't make a single dollar from that, right? So I want to make sure that Jesse and Sam feel like their time is well spent when they come visit. Yes, everyone? Yes. So. Everyone who's here, really appreciate it. Michael Johnson, 24, is if you want to watch a YouTube video on fmPromise, they have a video on their channel. It's another take, kind of a similar sort of video, I guess, kind of a little bit. Other people saying IE drives them nuts. Yeah, no kidding. And 360 is supposed to kind of eject that. Jesse says, I've heard FileMaker talking about that on public forums, which they weren't due if it wasn't coming soon. In terms of the Microsoft, but it's a Microsoft thing, but they've been talking about this I remember this conversation last year, right? So this whole IE library, whatever thing. So I'm afraid that, Microsoft has built a basket of doo-doo and they're trying to fix it. So yeah. All right. Well, everyone, if we want to have Sam back, how do people, do we want people to email you? Probably not, right? Because they'll ask you all sorts of questions. How do we encourage people to tell them that you are awesome? How do we do that? I mean, I guess we could send you
email Richard, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so if you love Sam and you want to see him come back and you're using their product, send me an email to support@RC Consulting. Say who you are, what product you use, and that you love Sam. We'll collect them all together. We'll file a petition, and then we will request that he comes back for more stuff. And then Net Lobster says send money too. Yes, well, buy their product. That's great. The best way of doing it. Or hey Sam, you're busy, right? You have any availability for new project work?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Well,
and,
then
it's not just me either. We've got our whole team.
A whole team. Okay, good. Well, then there you go. So there's a whole team of people to keep busy. So, Lexi Folger, yeah. She says the mirror. I think it's the mirror sync. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to cut everyone loose today. Send it if you have questions. Email support@360Works or sales@360Works if you're trying to buy something. If you want a question, comment, you want to tell us to bring Sam back, that you love Sam, that he's a fantastic guy, etc. Shoot me an email to support. We'll collect them and create a petition, and we'll bring him back. All right. So that's it for today. Good job, Sam.
All right. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.